Just making sure the hymnal was there. I didn't see it from before, and that's where.
Good morning, y'all. Let me prevent this microphone from falling into the pulpit. Okay. Hi, y'all. I'm Audrey Gale Hall, your membership coordinator here at Emerson UU Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind, body, and spirit as together we build a better world. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you and invite you to fill out our yellow visitor card located at the welcome table, out in the gathering place, or in the pew in front of you if you're lucky. Keith's holding one up in the front. That's going to let us reach out to you this week to let you know about upcoming events and get you signed up for our e-blast so you can stay up to date. Again, welcome to all. We are a church in many places, so although there's a bunch of us here in the room right now, we also have folks joining right now online and later through the recordings on our YouTube. So those of y'all at home, you're welcome here too. I want us to take a second, regardless of where we are experiencing this service, to maybe even close our eyes, take a couple of breaths, and visualize the beloved community around us who we can or maybe cannot see. Our world's a different one than it was in early 2020. We used to be all in the same place every week, right? So our worship service has changed accordingly. We're not passing the plates. We have them up here at the front and the back in the center for you to deposit your offerings during the offertory later in the service. We're also giving people choice in the pews as to whether to mask and how much distance to place between families. And for those of us here in person after the service, you can feel free to visit the gathering place for snacks. There are some extra special snacks for some reason today. Or to the church courtyard and playground to chat. And for those of you online, we'll have social time after the service, hosted by board trustee Marilyn Rambo. Thank you, Marilyn. That link is in the description. Here's one last reminder to please silence your cell phones. Give it a loving touch. Let it know you'll still be there for it after the service, and maybe switch the ringer to off so that we can be in worship mode together. Okay, and now to Sean for our prelude.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Michelle LaGrave, the interim minister of this congregation. I am so glad to see so many of you here with us this morning and imagine the rest of you online. So I would like to begin with a little bit of sad news, if you haven't heard already, which is that Tim Lawrence died this past week. I have lit a candle for him in the sand bowl. You may add yours as well if you would like. And I would like Mindy and Sarah and the rest of their family to know that we are thinking of them and holding them all in our hearts and with great care. I would also like to introduce our guest speaker this morning. Many of you met him yesterday at the Beyond Categorical Thinking workshop. Today we will have the Reverend Keith Kron speaking with us, leading worship. He is the director of the Transitions Office at the UUA and will be speaking on the theme of the future of religion and ministry in general, but also in Unitarian Universalism. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. You belong here. Audrey, will you come join me up here for a moment? So many of you may know that today is Audrey's last Sunday with us. Her last workday will be on Wednesday. Audrey is leaving us for health reasons and moving back to the Fort Worth area with her biological family. Audrey, you have made such a difference here at Emerson with your calm and loving presence. You have changed us. You have changed this church, all for the better. Thank you, and you are going to be so missed.
Good morning. Our opening words are from Reverend Robert Fulgham. To be human is to be religious. To be religious is to be mindful. To be mindful is to pay attention. And to pay attention is to sanctify existence. May our time together be a time to sanctify the existence of our lives and of life around us. We will now light this morning's chalice. We light the chalice this morning in the hope for peace. Our words are from Lao Tzu. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart.
Please rise either in body or spirit for our opening hymn, which is number 1017 in the Teal hymnal, "We Are Building a New Way."
Our story this morning comes from the author Ryan Higgins. It's entitled, "We Don't Eat Our Classmates." Penelope Rex was nervous. It's not every day a little T-Rex starts school. What are my classmates going to be like? Will they be nice? How many teeth will they have? This was very important to Penelope. Penelope's mom bought her a new backpack with ponies on it. Ponies were Penelope's favorite because ponies are delicious. Penelope's dad packed her a lunch of 300 tuna fish sandwiches and 1 box of apple juice. Finally, the big day came, and Penelope Rex was very surprised to find out that all of her classmates were children. So she ate them, because children are delicious. "Penelope Rex," said Mrs. Noodleman, "please don't eat our classmates. Please spit at once." So she did. It was not the best way to start school. Still, Penelope tried very hard to have a good first day. She tried to make friends at recess, but standing at the bottom of the slide with her mouth open didn't help. She thought she finger-painted some of her best work, but her picture of the dinosaur eating the child didn't win her any friends. She even saved Griffin Emery a seat of lunch. "You can sit here next to me," she said. He didn't. Penelope Rex started to notice that everyone was making friends except for her, and it was lonely. When she got home, her dad asked about her first day of school. "I didn't make any friends," Penelope cried. "None of the children wanted to play with me." "Penelope Rex, did you eat your classmates?" her father asked. "Maybe, just sort of, maybe a little bit." "Sometimes it's hard to make friends," said her dad, "especially if you eat them. You see, children are just the same as us on the inside, only tastier." That gave Penelope a lot to think about. The next day, Penelope tried really hard. But poor Penelope, she could not stop herself from eating her classmates. "Mrs. Noodleman, Penelope ate William again." She spit him out, but they were all afraid of her. Except for Walter. Walter was the goldfish. So Penelope tried to make friends with him. "Will you be my friend?" she asked as she stuck his finger in the bowl to pet him. And Walter went chomp and bit her finger. "Ee!" cried Penelope, "he's eating my finger. Wah!" But once Penelope found out what it was like to be someone's snack, she lost her appetite for children. She stopped eating her classmates, even when Cece Woodman spilled barbecue sauce all over herself. And soon Penelope began to make friends. They played hide and seek. She made brownies for them. Now, even when children look especially delicious, she peeks at Walter and remembers what it's like when someone tries to eat you. And Walter the goldfish stares back, and he licks his lips. Because dinosaurs are delicious.
Giving out of what is our own can lead us into transformative action. As a community of faith, we collect an offering every Sunday, not for ourselves or for our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action and as a way to live out our shared values. So this week, please give with a generous heart for the last Sunday in October to support our Share the Plate recipient, Juno's Hope. Juno's Hope is an organization helping dogs in need through sheltering, adoption, spay and neuter, community outreach, and education. And like I said in the first week of October, and I can confirm now, the education is not for the dogs, it's for humans. Juno's wants to help build a community where people value animals and treat them with respect and kindness. And the remaining 25% of our offering goes to our ongoing commitment to Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston's Meals on Wheels program, feeding Houston's seniors. We have 3 ways to give. You can go to our webpage for online giving, you can mail a check to church, or you can rise during the offertory music to place your offering in one of 2 baskets in the front or the box in the back in the center of the sanctuary.
Hello, this is your stewardship announcement. Was that okay? As of last Wednesday, 40 folks have submitted their pledges totaling yes, that's right, $224,059, which is 38% of our $590,000 goal. So thank you very much, those of you who have pledged. We are truly blessed. Two of us from Stewardship recently visited with 99-year-old Reverend Leonora Montgomery. And if you don't know, she is an amazing woman. She's not only a member of Emerson and past president of the board, but she has also served as minister to a number of Houston area UU churches. Her passion for this faith is palpable. She wants to see Unitarian Universalism thrive. So if this is okay to now listen to Reverend Leonora Montgomery, we did a little video while we were having lunch with her. Emerson, to our future. Do you have any words of advice for us?
I'm not so sure that a former member, well, no, I'm still a member. I can tell you what pleases me about where you are. You have said that you're raising, that you're doing the canvas, and that's not only an important thing to do for the church money-wise, but it's also an opportunity to bring the church together on something. Why are we here? Why is it worthwhile to give money to this enterprise? And I think you're on the right track. In fact, I'm pretty excited about your committee that's in charge of the canvas, because you're moving right along. How shall I say this? I think there are stages of preparation, and I think you're well along in your preparation because you know that it's the future of the church you're concerned about. And then of course you get stuck because you think, well, my church, my future in detail probably wouldn't serve everybody. And we are Unitarian. That's okay. I think they're going to have a lot of fun during the canvas because you're going to present options, but you're going to direct your congregation toward the future. And boy, I want Unitarian Universalism to thrive in Houston, Texas, and you're well on the way.
So here at Emerson, we are seeing our beloved community thrive through Lunch Bunch, covenant groups, ESL, and other educational, spiritual, and social community opportunities. Your pledge allows us to be the beloved community now and for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Dory. Y'all, I wanted to add a piece that we usually say before the offertory, which is that during that offertory space is when Katie Cartman, our Director of Religious Education, takes our children and youth out for religious education. And now that I'm up here, I see that all of our youth had already gone. So amazing, and I'll pass it to Keith for our meditation.
Please find a comfortable place to be or in your seats. Place your feet flat on the floor if you can and if you will, so that you might feel grounded, more connected to the earth, which nourishes and sustains us all. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a deep breath in. As together we enter into a time of silence, meditation, followed by silence. The meditation words are entitled Unclenching. It was nearly a perfect day for a walk. I wasn't alone. My favorite sighting on my street in Providence was a woman walking her adorable French bulldog down the street. I heard "Good boy, Luke" several times, and she pulled slightly on the leash to keep Luke from being too distracted. Around the corner comes a man with a pit bull. Luke goes stock still. But the pit bull is wagging her tail with the greatest of hope and charm, clearly excited about the possibility of making a new friend. She won me over. The woman tries to get Luke to move forward in vain this time because he is playing statue. Eventually, the man with the pit bull reaches the woman and her dog, and if possible, Luke gets stiffer. The woman is trying to tell him that it will be okay, and the pit bull sniffs hopefully at her new wished-for friend. And then, in an instant, Luke relaxes and sniffs back. And quickly, their tails are all wagging as they sniff and nuzzle and snort. And I notice that the owners have relaxed, that they have unclenched, and they now are talking amiably with each other. Though near as I can tell, their tails are not wagging with the same veracity as their pets. It's only then that I realized that I too had been clenching and feel my body relax. I left the happy foursome and headed off, thinking how much of a metaphor this was for today's times. How we all seem to be living lives of trepidation, yet hope and kindness are out there if we look beyond the stereotypes, if we present ourselves with kindness, if we just try. I think about the reputations that pit bulls have, and yet she was the kindest of all. Maybe in these trying and difficult times, we need to be more like this pit bull in whatever ways we can, offering a little hope and kindness to those new friends we might make. Let us enter into silence together. Amen, and blessed be. The reading this morning comes from Emily Bernard, from her book, Black is the Body. An African American, she tells in this reading the story of what happened to her the night that she was stabbed in a coffee shop in New Haven, Connecticut, while working on her doctorate degree many years ago, and the violence that she experienced that evening. I did experience terrible pain on the night of August 7th. The person responsible for it was the surgeon on call. I lay on a gurney feeling helpless and afraid. The surgeon walked over and, without saying a word to me or even looking in my direction, plunged his fingers into my gaping wound. I gasped, and I instinctively grasped his hand. It was only then that the man looked at me and said icily to me, "Don't touch my hand." His eyes were Aryan blue and as cold as his voice. I asked questions about what was happening to me, and he refused to to respond. Only the attending nurses treated me with kindness or respect. Whenever I tell the story of the night that I got stabbed, I always say that the person who did the most injury to me, who left the deepest wound, was not Daniel Silva, the young man with mental health issues who stabbed me, but it was the surgeon.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our borders. Never turning back, never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family, reunite the family, reunite the family, never turning back, never turning back. Familias reunidas, siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, 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 never turning back.
Peace.
We love you.
I've been thinking a lot about the future of the world, the future of religion, the future of Unitarian Universalism. I occupy a space in our faith where I look at the transitions of congregations with ministers. I see ministers resigning, I see congregations exhausted, and wonder about what the future will be. The pandemic has definitely taken its toll, but also having taken its toll was the state of our country. And as I think about the purpose that religion serves, I was reminded just very recently, 2018, that within the span of 2 months, we saw in the city of Pittsburgh both the breaking of yet another sex scandal among the Roman Catholic Church, and then 2 months later, a gunman walking into a synagogue, opening fire and killing 11 people. And that really started my questions about the future religion and questions of things like, why would anyone trust religion at all? But then I remember the opening words that I read from Reverend Robert Fulgham about being human means we are religious, always asking religious questions, and that we have a need for religion always. And I think about the work that I have done, and I was reminded of the times over the years that I have trained new intra-ministers. And I've started them recently in the last several years by asking them this question: what does a congregation need from its minister? I've gotten the responses you would expect. We need a minister who will do a good Sunday morning service, preach well, be good at pastoral care, be good at administration, help us think about the future. What intrigues me are the things that I've never heard a minister say that a congregation needs from them. And the things that I've not heard them say are, we need a minister who will build trust with us. We need a minister who will work to do no harm. And I think about that, and then I'm reminded that in all the congregations that I've worked with over the last 13 search cycles in my work for the UUA, I've never had a search committee tell me that is what we need most: a minister with whom we can trust and do no harm. Maybe that's where we need to start. Maybe that is, in fact, a future for religion. Think about it. How do we show up in the world? How do we build trust and rebuild trust? In the world, in our country, in religion, in Unitarian Universalism. We start by showing up. We start by being there for each other. And I'm reminded every October of when I was asked to show up on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Association some 24 years ago. At the time, I was the director of the Office of Bisexual, Gay, Lesbian, and Transgender Concerns, and it was in early October that the story broke about a young man being taken to a fence and left to die in rural Wyoming. There was a request from the Wyoming religious community to have people show up. Only 2 national representatives showed up that week in Wyoming. The founder of the Metropolitan Community Church, a church for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender Christians, and myself from the UUA. I participated in several memorial services and interfaith events, and I had been asked by the congregation in Laramie by the new minister there if I would come over and say a few words on Sunday morning and then go with the congregation as they visited the fence. I agreed. I showed up. The minister read a letter that he had gotten from another UU somewhere in the United States. Will give the sermon this morning. I have no idea, no memory of what I said. I do remember the people who I was with. Later, when we went to the fence, the minister brought some flowers, laid them down, turned to me and said, "And now Reverend Kron will give the memorial service for Matthew Shepard." Again, I said I don't remember what I said. I'll always remember standing by that fence with a group of about 30 Unitarian Universalists, signaling that violence had no place in our country. Later, I asked the minister, I thought I was supposed to just say a few words. Why did you ask me to do the sermon and then a memorial service? And he just said, I just feel lost. I have no idea. I had no idea what to do in these moments. I said, I understand that. But when we have no idea what to do, we just show up for each other. Now, coming out of a pandemic, moving into whatever phase is next, looking at the state of the world, I think we are in a similar situation. We have no idea what the future holds, but we can show up and be there together for one another. We can let people know they matter. I experienced that just a few months later. I was asked to preach in our congregation in Littleton, Colorado. It turned out I was the first guest preacher in Littleton just 3 weeks after the high school shooting. I walked in and witnessed what it means to show up. Because when I walked in, the church sanctuary there was covered with pictures and letters from children and adults who are Unitarian Universalist from all across the continent, expressing their care and support for this congregation. Our congregation in Littleton, Colorado, is the closest church to Columbine High School. At least one of the parents of the two young men who murdered those high school students had come to the church at some time looking for answers. We have to show up for one another. And how do we do that? I think about Houston Tony and Brene Brown, the author, who talks about trust and how it's built in little moments, in little things. That reminds me that if it's built in little moments, it can also be broken in moments, in little things. And that makes me think about one of the classes I had in seminary. It was taught by a woman who had survived the Holocaust. She was now a chaplain who worked both in a hospital and with teenagers considering suicide. And she worked with them, talking about how much life mattered. In the class, which was about death and dying, one day she had us pretend that we ourselves were hospital chaplains, showing up at the bedside of a patient near death, out of control of their body, basically only to lay there and whisper a few words. And she gave us the problem, what would you do? What would you say in that moment? So she had us role play this. Classmate volunteered to be the patient, and another classmate volunteered to be the chaplain. The chaplain walked over to the classmate, sat down next to the person, and took the patient's hand. At which point Anna, the professor, stood up and said, "Please never do that again." We all stopped and looked at Anna. She had expected this. She said, "I want you to think about this moment. You have a patient, probably near the end of his life, unable to move, barely able to speak, completely out of control of his life. And you went over and took more control away from him by taking his hand without asking him if you could do that first. Think about the trust you could have built if you had just simply asked, 'Would you like me to take your hand?' and given that patient the power to have some control over their response and what happened next. Think about how much more human that person would have felt with just that little bit of control." I think of that story almost every day in my career as a minister. Trust built and broken, where we give people the opportunity to have some say over their lives. A couple of months ago, I had a dream. The dream was this: I was on the side of a mountaintop clinging for my life. Eventually, I looked to the left of me and I saw a person also clinging to their life who looked at me and said, "Would you tie my shoe?" They held out their shoe for me to tie, and I am still hanging on. I looked to the right of me and I saw a minister whom I recognized, who said to me, "Can you find me a church where the people will treat me with respect and let me do everything that I want to do?" And then I realized there were thousands of people hanging on to the side of this mountaintop. And it was at that moment that the mountain began to erupt. That's kind of what I think we've been going through on some level during this last 2 years. We've been hanging on, forgetting that everyone else is trying to hang on too, with their big and little things, little moments. How do we build trust in a time when everyone is just hanging on? How do we do this together? And how do we just say, "Please, just hang on with me, just hang out with me"? We don't know what to do other than to do that, and that will be okay. I think about as we come back together, move back toward being together, there's a lot of conversation about who's going to come back, can we get new members, and I'm always reminded of this story that a friend of mine told me. A UU. He had gone to visit his son outside of Cleveland, and one of the things they were going to do, he was going to take his son to a baseball game, along with two of his son's friends. His son and his friends were all in their 20s. On the way to the baseball game, they passed our congregation on the west side of Cleveland. And the young man saw the church there with its Black Lives Matter banner, with its rainbow flag, with its welcoming congregation welcome. And immediately the three young men began to talk. If I were going to go to church, that's the kind of church I would want to go to. This is a church that's making a difference in people's lives. This is something that I can support and believe. And so as I was talking with my friend, we wondered aloud what would happen if they actually did show up at church. They would be told they were welcomed. They would be told at 25, "We're so glad you're here." But would it come with a caveat, as it does with so many of our congregations? You are welcome here as a 25-year-old as long as you act like the 60, 70, and 80-year-olds in our congregation. as long as you give like the 60, 70, and 80-year-olds in our congregation, and as long as you serve on 37 committees like the rest of the people in our congregation. Again, this makes me wonder about the future of religion and what it might be. We often do the same for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I know of at least 2 people who told me when they showed up at a church, within 2 weeks, someone had asked them if they would like to serve on the church board, because they were looking to diversify the leadership. And that's not to say that we haven't done worse. I still remember the story that a good friend and colleague of mine told me. African-American minister showed up at one Sunday in one of our congregations to guest preach. Showed up, the greeter welcomed him, and then asked, "Are you here to clean the building this morning?" I can tell you, in having visited 450 UU congregations, no one has ever asked me if I was there to clean the building. Sometimes I'm amazed this person is still a UU colleague. It is so hard sometimes to see this in our theology. We see ourselves as being multi-theological, but in some of our congregations, we are as fundamentalist about our humanism as some Christian churches about their Christianity. We even had one congregation try and vote to make humanism their official theology of their church. Can't imagine what it did to the people in that congregation who didn't identify as humanist. We can do harm too. Maybe sometimes we too eat our classmates. This could be a golden age for Unitarian Universalism. I think there are a lot of new people who are out there looking for a community of like-minded people. People who are willing to explore theology from multiple viewpoints, who aren't fighting about queer issues, who want to make a difference in the world, who are working on racial justice, climate change, anywhere where they can make the world better. That sounds like it could be us. What will we do with the new classmates who might show up? I've asked some of our congregations who said, well, we like the way things are. We want new people as long as they're exactly like the people who are already here. How many of those folks are left? Is what you need a new minister? Is there an endless supply of those folks who are exactly like us? Or maybe what you need is a hospice chaplain. Someone who can sit with you as you get smaller and smaller. Because we won't be around forever. What will the future of Unitarian Universalism look like? I think about the Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie, who talks about the danger of stereotypes. She says the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story the only story, and therefore limiting. Can we ourselves be more than a single story? Can we move beyond the stereotypes and really set a new course for the future of our faith? Or will we do harm, commit little acts of violence, and demand that we go on like we hoped we always have been? How do we in these times, how do we unclench? How do we do no harm? How do we pay attention? How do we sanctify existence? How will we be religious? Must we try and be the smartest person in the room? Can we be classmates together, learning, listening, making mistakes, showing up, being human, being religious with one another, and seeing all of this as an opportunity? I'm reminded of a story from my dean at my seminary, who was sitting on a committee with 7 or 8 other from the Graduate Theological Union. They were trying to figure out a decision for the future of the GTU, and he and the dean of the American Baptist Seminary completely disagreed on the future. And what my dean said at that particular point, what interests me here is not that Jeff and I disagree. It's that the rest of you are trying to fix us. I would rather hear what the rest of you have to say about this, because I can guarantee you, long after this meeting is over, Jeff and I will be friends. We will go to lunch together and support one another. We just simply disagree on this particular issue. And I think, can we have that kind of respect to promote a diversity which I think will save us? I really learned this story. Some 24 years ago, I was asked by the UUA to go and represent our faith at a conference on gender, religion, and sexuality. I was there from some 40 other denominations in Nashville, Tennessee. I was seated on this long panel in between John from the Church of God and Mark from the Church of Christ. We were passing the microphone around, and the microphone got to John, and John said, "Hi, my name is John, I'm from the Church of God, and we're to the right of the right." He smiled and he handed me the microphone. I went, "Hello, my name is the Reverend Kron. I'm the director of the Office of Bisexual, Gay, Lesbian, and Transgender Concerns for the Unitarian Universalist Association." And by that point, I had to stop talking because John and Mark were scooting their chairs away from me, making enough noise that I couldn't be heard. When they finally settled down, I went, "And I'm from the left of the left." I then had to pitch the microphone to Mark so that he could introduce himself. We spent 4 days talking about all things about gender, religion, and sexuality. They were amazed, even back in the late 1980s, that we had more women in ministry than men, that we openly supported the ordination of gay, lesbian, bisexual people, that we promoted lifelong, full sexuality education for our children and youth. On the last day, John and Mark and 2 of his friends, probably named Matthew and Luke, I can't remember, came up to me and said, "We would like to have lunch with you." And I thought, well, this will be fun. But I agreed. We sat down and began talking to each other, and we discovered, they were surprised, that we were all original Tennesseans. They were all from Central Tennessee, but I had been born in East Tennessee, and that's where my mother's family was all from. And so we talked about Tennessee for a bit before we finally got to what they really wanted to talk about. And Mark said to me, "We just wanted you to know that we have listened to you all week. We have listened to what you said. And we wanted you to know that we have disagreed with literally every word that has come out of your mouth. But we also wanted you to know that we respect you, because at least you are clear about what you believe. And that is something that we have respect for." And they were my teachers in that moment. A reminder that we were all humans together, figuring things out. We talked a little bit more about that, and then one of them tentatively asked me if I had any interest in football. Surprised when they learned that I knew more about football than all 4 of them, and that I'd worked my way through college officiating football, basketball, and softball games. And in that moment, I got to be their teacher. The person has more than a single story, has more than a stereotype. And that is my hope for the future of religion, of our faith, that we can show up and be the multiple stories of who we are, that we can, in fact, find that we do not share all the same opinions and yet can respect and find humanity in one another. How will we show up in these new, unfamiliar times? How will we listen? How will we respect? How will we build trust with one another? We are in a moment where building trust may matter more than anything, as well as agreeing to try to do no harm. We will still harm, but if we try, if we agree to be classmates together, we will be able to work through that. Can we unclench? Can we be kind? My hope is that we can choose to be with each other in whatever the future brings. That, I think, will bring forth that golden age of Unitarian Universalism and the possibility that all that we have worked for over these last any number of years will continue and continue to make a difference. I invite you to pledge to do that in your lives. Amen. For our benediction, as you are comfortable and willing, knowing that everyone might not be comfortable and willing these times, but as you are comfortable and willing, take the hand of the person next to you. If you are at home or on Zoom, imagine you are taking the hand of a loved one. Become aware of the hands that you are holding, their warmth, their texture, their weight. As an infant, these hands reached out for the nourishment of milk. As a child, these hands shakily wrote a name on paper for the first time. These are hands that have wiped away tears, clenched in anger, waved hello and goodbye countless times, and embraced loved ones. And now these hands are the tangible link that connect us to one another. These are hands that have worked, are working, and will work to make our world a better place. I invite you to look around you and see those around you who have experienced so much that is life. Go in peace, go in love, work for justice. Go forth and bless the world. Amen.
Announcements for today. First of all, you may see some papers, scraps of paper in and around the pews. Those are in case you are a person who would like to take notes about announcements because they're hard to remember. So this is in lieu of written announcements because we know it's hard to keep track of everything showing up on the slide, and you may not always go back home and double check in the e-blast and whatnot. So one more way to remember what's going on at church. Today, after the service, we are going to have social time both here in person and on Zoom. Here in person, we are going to have a very special social time as we say goodbye to Audrey. There is going to be cakes and cupcakes and strawberries and I don't know what else. But we'll have a very special goodbye for her. And is Lunch Bunch still happening today? Yes. Ellen says yes. I think Lunch Bunch will be leaving a little later, though, than usual, so that you all can spend a little bit of time saying goodbye to Audrey and wishing her well in the next phase of her journey. Next Sunday, this is the thing you might want to write down. We are going to be having a service where the theme will be about our ancestors and for All Souls Halloween time of year. So we would like to invite you to bring a photo or something else that reminds you of a loved one who has died, and we will be creating an altar together. So remember to bring a photo or an object that reminds you of one of your own loved ones. And Sean has, before our postlude, one more announcement.
Hello, everybody. For those hearing my voice the first time, yes, I do speak. So our Performing Arts Council, which is not just the choir, but also the drama, theater, orchestra members, the pit band members who usually play here on Sundays, some Sundays, they're actually part of the orchestra members in the past. And so we've started this music series, concert series called Music Sundays. It's a little bit of an experiment. So we were initially planning for 3 concerts in the fall. We've already done the first one, which was about 2 Sundays ago. I realized we didn't make a public announcement about it. So I want to make sure like we're moving forward, I'll be better about making announcements. Unfortunately, for the upcoming one, which is scheduled for next Sunday, October 30th, we have to postpone it to a later date because there's a scheduling conflict. It was supposed to be a piano-cello duo, and the cellist has an engagement that he did not foresee. And so for that reason, that concert will be postponed until January 22nd. So mark your calendars. We're trying to keep this concert series consistent, Sundays at 4. I know sometimes that date may not work, so maybe some point later we might send out a survey and see if you might prefer a Saturday night concert or Sunday night, Sunday at 4. Mainly, we wanted to do it Sunday at 4 so that even the young kids can come and watch. And this concert series is not my solo project. It is endorsed by our president of the Performing Arts Council, Stephen. So the main goal is not just to promote the talent within the choir, the orchestra members, all our music department, but also a wonderful facilities to have more people come to this church, introduce our church to new members, possibly people who are interested in sharing our same ideals, and most importantly, our fantastic instruments. So this piano, I'm not sure if you know how much it's worth, but it's an asset. It's worth at least a luxury car right now. It's made in 1989. It's a Steinway Model D. If you want to buy one of those right now, it's close to $200,000. So, and based on price projection, 4% increase in inflation, in 10 years, it's going to be $300,000. So, so we're trying to raise some funds. Of course, this is free admission. Free AC, free lighting, free entertainment, free hugs if you want. But we also do have an organ and a harpsichord that we haven't been featuring for a very long time because it really needs some maintenance done. So the point of this concert, besides all these wonderful values of like sharing our talents, meeting more people, is also to somehow make some extra income to fund and fix our instruments so that we can hear the glorious sound of the organ again, possibly. So yes, please, but do mark your calendar for December 4th, Sunday at 4 p.m. That will be my solo recital. I will be playing works by Liszt, Schumann, Chopin, and Liadov, which not many people know. So if you're interested, please do come and join me. You might hear me curse on stage. That would be a plus. So please do come. Thank you.